Hey guys, Zen here, and welcome back. Guys, what do this operator and this operator have in common? Yeah, they both lost their ACOGs at the exact same time, and getting them back isn't too far away after this big announcement from Ubisoft. Also, our 6 players are up in arms about this major change that went under the radar, and it affects just about everyone. And some of the best operators in Rainbow Six Siege are getting their loadouts changed. Guys, this video has 6 updates that just might tickle your fancy, and there's a lot. Let's get into this.
I see you.
So first up, if you want this, the Echo Elite, or this, the newest Elite from Omai, you'll need these, our 6 credits. And our 6 credits are set to change, or well, inflate, just like just about everything else, and our 6 players are not thrilled about it. Take a look. So these are the updated prices for our 6 credits, and technically, they're not going up in price, at least not in the traditional sense, but you are getting less of them for the same price. So for starters, the $20 and $35 pack are going away, and will be replaced with a new $25 pack that nets you 3,300 credits. For reference, the $20 pack would usually get you 2,670 credits, and for $35, you'd get 4,920. Then the $50 pack is getting a reduction in credits to 7,200 from the original 7,560. And then if you opt for the top tier $100 pack, you'll get 15,000 credits, down a whole 1,000 credits from the original 16,000. Now, naturally, they're saying that these changes will help to sustain the game for now and into the future by continuing to deliver a consistent high quality experience. And of course, this news hasn't been received incredibly well, but alas, these are the times and this is the change. I think the one saving grace here is the new $25 pack, because now, instead of having to buy up to 30 for 2 elite bundles, you can opt for the $25 pack and snag 2, as long as you have the discount in the store, that is. But I'm not gonna raise my pitchfork too high with this. Yes, higher prices or less credits isn't ideal, but if you are new or switching accounts, Siege is going free to play, and that lowers the price of entry for the game. They do address this as well. This is exactly what they said. While these adjustments are minor, we understand that even small pricing changes can affect our players, and we take that responsibility very seriously. This update is about making the smallest changes possible while sustaining the game for the long haul and continuing to build the Siege experience we're proud of. And so, guys, this is live with the release of Siege X on June 10th, and for me, I think it should also be noticed that they are being super transparent here. It's not coming as a surprise. They gave the heads up, and I, for one, can appreciate that. Now, next up at number 2, there's currently only one way to use the MP7 with an ACOG, and it's with Zero. It's one of his primary weapon options, and even on attack, it is absolutely lethal. Some years back though, this setup was also available on Bandit, and he wasn't the only 3-speed on defense like this. Jager as well had an ACOG on the 416, and as you can imagine, it shreds. So they took it away from both of them, and it's a change they never looked back on. Jager and Bandit have only ever had 1x sights for their weapons since. But this and the entirety of zoomed optics on defense is changing here soon. Now, during the year 10 roadmap reveal, it was one sentence, just a quick mention, and it was gone. It was mentioned that they're planning on exploring magnified scopes on defense, and so what exactly does this mean? Currently, we have magnified scopes on defense. Doc and Rook come to mind immediately, and even 3-speeds have them, like with Vigil on the Boss G, or Alibi with the Slug shotgun. And so magnified scopes are definitely available on defense. It's just a matter of what operators have them. Now, if you didn't know, there was once this rule shortly after they removed the ACOGs of Bandit and Jager that said that only 3 armor, or now 3 health operators, will get magnified scopes on defense. This was a glorious time for Maestro mains, because for a while there, he too had an ACOG on his Alda, and it was devastating when they took it from him. But since then, that rule has been done away with, and they didn't really replace it with anything. Now, it seems that having an ACOG is all about balance, and looking at the entire operator as a whole, and deciding whether or not to give them an ACOG. But even that is hard to make total sense of, because look at Doc, an operator with an amazing gadget, capable of fully healing either himself or 3 other teammates, a secondary soft breaching pistol with the Bailiff, and 3 super consistent primaries. Some would argue the MP5 is the best weapon on defense. I mean, he can also revive down teammates, and so my question is, why does Doc have an ACOG? With Rook, it makes a little more sense. They're essentially the same operator, with Rook having a more simple gadget and without the secondary breach pistol, so you can see why he might get an ACOG. But Doc, even without the ACOG, is still one one of the best defenders currently. And so what does it all mean? What it ultimately means is opening up all of defense to magnified scopes, creating even more parity between offense and defense, and this has been an ongoing effort as time has gone on. Now, there are many that feel like, why would they do this? Defense already has its own advantages over attack. Why would they just give everyone a magnified scope and potentially make things worse? And to a certain extent, I get it, but also not too long ago, they had somewhat of a trial period with the 1.5 scope. The iconic 1.5, an attachment that was considered to have broken Siege, was handed out to basically any operator that needed a little help. And its effect meant that as soon as they got the sight, their popularity shot up and they become a top-picked operator seemingly overnight. When Wamai had it, there was a short time where he was actually more popular than Jager. When they gave it to Thorn, her pick rate skyrocketed and she became one of the most used traps. Both Kapkan and Legion had it, and even now, you're seeing how much that's done to get them on the map. Alibi, Mute, and even Smoke had access to this site, and essentially every operator with one started raising in popularity over those without it. And so the effect of giving just some operators on defense a magnified scope skews the data on why they're picked, and we see this even now. Defenders live and die by this option, and so what would be the effect of giving it to all of them? Would the players then choose based more on utility and what makes an operator whole rather than just having access to a single scope? The problem with the 1.5 was, well, the 1.5. The magnification was just too perfect for Siege, where it was perfectly suited for every engagement. So now that magnification doesn't even exist in Siege, and so defenders would then have to choose between the longer range 2.5 ACOG or the more close range 1x sites, and a lot of that really depends on the particular objective. But really, this is kind of the last thing on the table. They've tried handing them out for balance. They've tried making rules around who gets them, and so many people believe this is what they're meaning when they say they're exploring magnified scopes on defense, making it available to every defender, Bandit, Jager, Melusi, and letting the meta decide what truly makes an operator the top of their class. For me, I think it'd be super interesting to see how this affects the popularity of operators and why people decide to choose or not choose a defender. Now, I'd imagine there'd be additional balancing with this, giving ACOG slower ADS, for instance, and leaning further into the trade-off of slow with more zoom or light and snappy, but I don't know, something never truly done before in Siege, and it has some major implications on how they're balancing for the future. At number 3 is another quick update, but this, the Reaper MK2, as of now, the newest weapon to Rainbow Six Siege, and also, as of now, only available to Raora. But it has been confirmed that this weapon will be moved around to some other operators. One of the ways they've said they'll be balancing operators starting in Season 3 is by giving this weapon, the Reaper MK2, over to some new faces and switching up their loadouts. But there is a problem with this. Maybe I'm in the minority here, but the Reaper MK2, it sucks. Like, I don't want to be down on the weapon, but I think out of all the secondary automatic weapons, this one is on the bottom of the list. And so as much as I like the idea for loadouts to change and for some weaker ops to get the weapon, something really needs to be done about its performance because I just haven't had that moment where I fall in love. The SMG-11 is a staple. For every operator with it, it becomes a permanent fixture to their loadout, and that'll probably never change. The Bearing 9 is good in a pinch, and the SMG-12 is a nightmare right now. But the Reaper MK2 just doesn't hold a candle to those other options, and I think a recoil buff and maybe a slight increase to fire rate could help get it there. But it would seem that totally exclusive weapons are starting to become a thing of the past. As for the Reaper, I think it'd be a great fit for Sense, an operator that I think could use a little more firepower. I could also see it coming to Osa as well, for a similar reason. And then if they include defenders, I think Wamai, Pulse, and Skopos would greatly appreciate the buff. Again, the Reaper needs a buff for this to make any real difference, but something to consider. Some ops that have never had an automatic secondary could be seeing this one here soon. Up at number 4 is a quality of life change that's made the rounds, but the new enemy outline. It's red. That's the big update, but the tech here to make that possible is actually really well done. So it's not as aggressive as teammate outlines, which it should also be noted are now always on. They used to disappear once you had direct line of sight on a teammate, but now they're simply always on, and so you will always see outlines around every single character in a match. As for the red outline though, there are some gameplay ramifications. For one, this does make enemies more easily visible. You can really pull them out from the background, and in special situations where maybe they're on rappel with just their head or limb sticking out, or they're ratting behind something, it'll help identify that there's an enemy there, and that can come in clutch. Now, I know for some, this is too far. Like, it takes away from the more tactical nature of Siege, where you need to get intel on an opponent rather than the game itself providing an outline to kind of help you out. But for Siege, if you consider the updated lighting, which is designed to give things a little little bit of a darker, grittier look, and also different graphical settings, I think this is a good change. And again, this has a lot to do with the game getting free access and lots of new faces popping in and making the experience a little easier to adapt to. And I like that it's subtle. Some might not immediately notice it, but it is there. Enemies are outlined in red, or whichever color scheme you choose. And added to that, all rim lighting stays on permanently. Number 5, finally, a dedicated stats page in the game. So guys, there's always been ways to track your stats, like deep stats, beyond just win rate and KD, but most of the time, that stuff is through a third party outside of the game. And up until now, they've done a great job. I've even had the pleasure of working with some of them. But now, it won't be entirely necessary because they have finally added a stats page to Rainbow Six Siege. You're able to go as far back as Year 7 Season 4 and see just about everything. Your kills, how many times you survived, trades, and that's across all core Siege modes. Now, they're still missing map data, and so it'd be great to see like how well you perform on Outback rather than Border, but this is a great start, and on top of this, they've completely overhauled the leveling system. Now, from 1 to 20 clearance level, there will be 2 challenges, so a max of 40 that'll net you rewards and benefits to get you up and running. And one of the best parts is that if you're like me and are well above level 100, you'll experience a new leveling curve. I'm currently level 335, and sometimes it'll take weeks to go up just one level because of how much EXP is required. It's actually crazy to think that all leveling amounts to in today's game is whether or not you're high enough to play ranked. Outside of that, it's an afterthought, and with this update, they're adding consistent rewards that you'll earn as you climb. Every level is 1000 renown, and every 10 is an alpha pack, and so even if you're done with your battle pass and you have every operator unlocked, at the very least, you can beef up your renown stacks and your cosmetic collection just by playing and leveling up. And lastly for UI, the esports tab, an absolutely essential addition here. And guys, I know some of you could care less, but I think for a lot of people, it's because they just don't know what's going on. Like, unless you're in that world, you might not know what teams made a major, or who's in the lead on points, who's getting an invite to the Invitational, and who lost in a must-win situation. You might not even know which teams are still in the R6 circuit, and that's okay. The storylines that make sports and esports matter can be tough to keep up with, and now that they've put this stuff easily accessible in-game, I think a lot more people will find a reason to follow along. If you've ever felt like the balancing of the game is too heavily skewed in favor of the pros, well, now you'll be able to see why. You can keep up with the pro circuit as it's happening, and at the very least, you might come across a new strat you can try in ranked, or you might see the writing on the wall for why an operator is getting nerfed or buffed in real time. I, for one, think this is huge, and I've never been one to follow too closely, but for sure, I'll be spending quality time in the esports tab and gaining as much intel as I possibly can. And finally, at number 6, Rainbow Six Mobile, the mobile version of Siege, and for a while now, it's only been playable on Android devices because of some of the restrictions with Apple. But we could see the game get to iOS sooner than later because Epic won the lawsuit over Apple in extraordinary fashion. App developers can now take you outside of the app to make a purchase, and there's nothing Apple can do about it, which means the devs get to keep the full amount of the transaction and don't succumb to the dreaded 30% Apple tax. This opens up the floodgates for Ubisoft to finally publish R6 Mobile on iOS, and it'll be a massive launch. The game has seen new seasons, new operators, and regular updates, and so if you are deep into Rainbow Six Siege, you're gonna want to look out for this. And now is a great time to selflessly remind you to use code ZEN in the Ubisoft store, but not before this. The video on the right is all about a Thermite or Thatcher remaster. A brand new operator remaster is confirmed to be coming to a Pathfinder operator, and all eyes are on these two. The video on the left is a games update with lots of news. The choice is yours. Guys, thanks for watching. I'm out.